Hello and welcome. I'm Evan Money, joined today by my amazing bride.
Hello.
And you've made the right choice to join us today. The simple truth is, you're here for a reason. Whatever sparked in your spirit to sign up and join us, keep listening to it. You are now on the right track. No matter what state your marriage is in, there is hope. This is the turning point. From now on, things are going to get better. The flow of love will be restored in your marriage. The fun wife you married will return, and the knight in shining armor you married is still there. I guarantee it. Also, we have a special gift to give you at the end that will be of tremendous value to you. Yours free. No catch, no pressure, just massive value for you. Now, in this webinar, we're going to cover 3 of the biggest lies about marriage and how you can instantly improve your marriage. Are you ready for that? So with the amount of people we have on this seminar, we realize not everyone is in the same state in their marriage. Some of you may be in a position where you've been married for a while and things are okay, but you feel like you're in a rut. The passion is gone and you're just going through the motions. Sex is routine, and while things aren't that bad, it can be way better. For others, it may be much worse. You're not sure if you want to stay together, but there's something deep inside that doesn't want to give up. And I'm so proud of you for being willing not to give up on true love. It's there for you. It's just hiding. My bride and I will show you how to find it. Now, for some of you, this may be your second, third, fourth, even fifth marriage or more. And you so desperately want to avoid the pain of another divorce. The good news is we won't judge you, and you're welcome here. In fact, I admire your willingness to be a cycle breaker, to say, you know what, the past is the past, I'm moving forward, I'm not going to continue this destructive cycle, and being that cycle breaker. You can do it, you're on the right track now. And lastly, I know there's a few of you out there that have a good marriage, but you want to make it great. And I literally applaud you for your growth mindset, and you'll be amazed to discover at how much you'll learn today. So without further ado, let me bring in my beautiful bride, Susan, who will share a few things. It's all yours, my love.
Hi, this is Susan. You may be surprised to hear that speaking in a webinar or doing videos, and especially speaking live in front of people, is definitely not something I'm all that comfortable with. I'm normally the behind-the-scenes person, the support person. I'm like the run around and get whatever you need kind of a person. Yet God has led Evan and I to sow good seeds into the hearts of others and to give them the tools that have been the foundation of our thriving marriage. And in order to do that, I need to step out of my comfort zone. So here we are. Imagine having the marriage that you've always dreamed of. It is possible, and it all starts right now. Even if your spouse will not participate, it's okay. I cannot control Evan, although there are still plenty of times that I'd like to. But I can control my actions and my attitude. And you'll find that when your actions and your attitude change, then it's going to cause a reaction or response in your spouse, and they are going to need to respond in some way. So I learned long ago that in order for things to get better, I had to get better. In order for things to change, I needed to change. In order for my marriage to grow, I had to grow. And that's what my husband and I are here to help you with right now, growing to be the best you. I'll talk to you in a little bit, and remember that we have a special gift for you at the end. So here is my amazing husband, Evan.
Isn't my bride tremendous? You may be wondering about our last name, and the simple truth is, yes, Money really is our last name, but I certainly wasn't born with any. And to my bride's credit, over 2 decades ago, she was unashamed to marry money. Ha!
Yeah, well, it was in name only at the time.
Yes, because the real funny part was when we got married, I didn't have any, and not even a little. But I did have some hair, as you'll probably see on the picture coming up on the screen. So our financial situation was pretty bleak, and paycheck to paycheck would have been an upgrade in all seriousness. We always seem to have more month than money. And some of you, I think, definitely can relate to that. However, things finally started to change for us. When we started to change. Things started to get better when we got better, both in our finances and our relationship. My bride and I, we doubled down on personal growth, and we have attended literally over 100 seminars. We've read mountains of books, And we've been blessed with incredible mentors that we've learned and took in action from their suggestions. And along the way, my bride and I have taken the best of the best, and we've crafted the happily ever after system for you. These tools and insights my bride and I are about to share brought us massive joy, freedom, restoration, and increased the flow of love in our relationship. And they're going to do the same for you. Now, you also may be wondering if we really do get married in a different state or country every year. And yes, and actually sometimes we actually have 2 weddings a year. Now, our lifelong goal is to have our 100th wedding on our 100th birthday, and we're right on track. And I freely admit, full disclosure, the honeymoons are spectacular, and that's why I'm so excited about it. So as well, I do enjoy the ceremony, but the deep levels of passion, love, and physical pleasure is so great. You have to experience it to believe it. And the best part is you can, starting right now. So how do we decide to get remarried in a different state or country, you may ask? Well, for me, growing up in Southern California and into my mid-20s, I only saw 3 types of possible relationships. You could either be married and miserable, divorced and desperate, or single and cynical. And deep down, I knew there had to be a better way, because I sure couldn't live the rest of my life in one of those 3 states. I was like, I can't live like this. So I believed in true love, and it was my mission to find it. Little did I know that true love and happily ever after isn't a place to be discovered. Rather, it's a place to be created by your actions, your attitude, and your mindset. One of the ways for us to create it is by rededicating our love to each other every year. So there we were. We're at this Dream Big seminar, and we're newly married. We're in massive debt, which I alluded to before, but we were excited to change that. We knew we could get out. There was hope. And that's when we heard about a famous author who every year on his anniversary, they would have a big party, invite everybody over, and at the party, he would remarry his wife every year. And my bride lit up when she heard that. And being caught up in the spirit, of the seminar, Dream Big, she looked at me and said, let's do that. But let's do it in a different state or country every year.
Yes.
And in my mind, all I could think about was, how are we going to pay for that? But I knew not to steal my bride's dream. So my mind was screaming no, but my head was nodding yes. And from that point on, I really hearkened back to one of my first mentors' advice from Jim Rohn. He said, you can either find an excuse or you can find a way. And I was like, all right, I'm going to find a way to get remarried in a different state or country every year with no money. So my first brilliant idea was, we could go to Tijuana, Mexico. Now, not to insult anyone in Tijuana, Mexico, but that's not exactly the wedding destination capital of the world. Tijuana is basically known to do things on very economical budgets. But that's where we were. And I was like, okay, we got to start somewhere. So I'm planning this Tijuana wedding when, lo and behold, I know God's looking down going, these kids are, goodness gracious, you guys are so lost and confused. Let me help you a little bit. And so we actually won an all expenses paid trip to Paris, France. And our first first marriage renewal was at the Palace of Versailles in the gardens in Paris, France. Now, if you're not familiar with the Palace of Versailles, it's over 700,000 square feet. Yeah, that's bigger than your Costco. And the gardens are over 2,000 acres. I mean, it's this incredible place. I mean, basically on the other side of the scale of Tijuana, where my mindset was going. So it was just incredible. Now, we haven't won a trip every year, but since those, and in those early years, we just got really creative, because after that Palace of Versailles experience, I was like, wow, what else could happen? Goodness gracious, this is a great way to start. So for our third wedding, we had some friends who lived in Carefree, Arizona. That's right outside of Phoenix. And I was like, okay, well, we could barely sort of afford the gas out there. And so we had some friends of friends that lived out there, and they were having a big cookout party, baptism. And we're like, hey, well, can we come and maybe have someone do a ceremony for us? And they're like, sure, yeah, come out, it'll be great. So they actually had peacocks on the property as well as other cool exotic animals. So my bride's bouquet was actually all peacock feathers.
I still have it.
Yeah. And so we didn't even have to pay for flowers. So we got free food, a free wedding, free flowers. We just got really creative. And again, every year we're like, instead of trying to find an excuse, we found a way. And those yearly recommitments helped us stay away from the trap of becoming married and miserable. So speaking of that, why is it that married people never talk about how amazing their spouses are? They always seem to share the negative things. For guys, they refer to their wives as the ball and chain or the old lady. And, no wonder your marriage is suffering. And that fun wife you married disappeared. You drove her away. So the simple truth is, de-edifying your spouse only makes things worse. Ladies, you fall into this trap as well. When gals get together, they talk, and it's real. I always like to kid, you put a gal in line in the bathroom, and in the next 3 minutes, they've shared more stuff than most guys share in 10 years. Gals talk, and it's real. But sadly, a lot of times they only want to share what their husband isn't doing or the latest insensitive thing that he did. So the next time you're tempted, guys or gals, to speak negatively about your spouse, do this instead. You can say, you know what, my spouse is far from perfect, but I really enjoy the way they do blank. Or I really appreciate the way they blank. This simple statement will literally shift the conversation to a much more positive tone, and you will reap massive rewards. And one way you can instantly improve your marriage, remember we talked about that at the beginning, is to talk good things about your spouse behind their back. You will feel good doing it, and when it gets back to your spouse, watch what happens. Many hurts and frustrations will be instantly healed when you do this. Now, there's a large percent of you on this webinar that are looking to avoid the other type of marriage option, and that's being divorced and desperate. So please know, I understand that many of you, again, may have already been divorced once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, whatever. It's okay. I'm not judging you. Again, you're welcome here. And it's really not your fault. We've been programmed for this cycle of divorce. Just look at any magazine in the supermarket checkout. You look at the cover, it's how to get a man, then it's how to keep a man, and then it's how to get rid of that man. And the cycle goes on and on and on and on and on. I have the pleasure of knowing an incredible woman who was divorced 5 times by her 35th birthday. And that takes a lot of work to get to that point. And once she realized in order for things to get better, she had to get better. And in order for things to change, she had to change. And as soon as that hit her, everything changed for her. She's been happily married now for over 20 years and is enjoying her grandchildren. And her husband have a thriving marriage, all because she chose to change and be a cycle breaker. And you can too. Now, for those that may be secretly or even openly thinking that, man, if I were just single again, everything would be better. Single people have all the fun. And it sure looks that way on social media. It sure looks that way on TV and all the commercials. But we all know that it's just empty calories. And you get obese on pleasure, but you end up starving for love. And so this brings us to lie number 1. Remember, talk to the 3 biggest lies in marriage. So let's get to lie number 1. Sex just gets worse after marriage. And so many people have bought into that. And the real truth is, married sex is the best sex, but nobody knows it. Have you ever heard a married man with kids or someone who's been married for 6, 7 years talk about all the great sex they're having? For those that are faith-based, like my bride and I in the church, have you ever heard a married man at your church ever talking about all the great romance with his wife? Surely I can't be the only guy who's been married for decades with kids, loves God, and is having spectacular sex. It reminds me of baby pigeons.
Tell us about baby pigeons.
Yes, think about baby pigeons. They're found on virtually every continent. They may even be on Antarctica. I've yet to travel to Antarctica. We were half joking about having a wedding there once just because it's such a big area. But just about every other continent, you find pigeons. They're everywhere. But think about it. Have you ever seen a baby pigeon? They must exist, but most people have never seen one. So the sad truth is, married people just don't know how amazing married sex can be. They think they have to give up pleasure and ecstasy because that's just the way marriage is. Wrong! It's a lie, and you can choose to stop believing it today. So where does this lie come from? A large part of it's rooted in shame. And for those that grew up in the church, we're all told that sex is bad, stay away, don't do it. And, that's actually normally society in general. But then when we get married, all of a sudden it's okay. And we get exposed to these books of the Bible that openly talk about sex and how amazing it is. And somehow they were hidden from us before. And so all this mixed messaging causes shame. As well in society, no matter where you are, church, out of church, whatever, there's these slang words that we have for sex. And many of these invoke some kind of shame or secrecy. And then when you compound all this by the fact that over 95% of U.S. males' first exposure to sex is through porn. And porn is not real. It's distorted, it's perverted, it's twisted. And the simple truth is God created sex to be the greatest experience two married human beings can have together. And when you're having sex with your spouse, God isn't covering his eyes, looking away. He invented it. Remember my pastor laid that truth on me. I was like, wow, that's right. Yeah, he did invent it. And he wants you to have more of it, not less, and have better experiences. But we've perverted it. We've made it something that it's not. And one of, the devil's greatest tools is to get people to believe he doesn't exist. And as the great deceiver, he can't create anything. He can only pervert and twist what God has created. And that's what he's done to sex. And porn, of course, is his favorite tool. Even the terms are meant to deceive. Think about it. Well, there's soft porn, and then there's hard porn. It's all the same. It's all destructive. It's time to renew our mind. It's time to adopt a new mindset and discover how glorious married sex can be. So one way you can instantly do this is by making your bedroom a sanctuary. Okay? Remove all screens from your bedroom. Get the TV out. Get the laptop out. Because the simple truth is, if you have a TV and a computer or laptop in your bedroom, then you're not having great sex. Period. So I remember my bride and I spoke about this years ago at a marriage seminar that we were doing. And I remember someone came up afterwards and was pretty hot under the collar and, was really upset. Like, what are you talking about? TV in the bedroom. We got TVs in the bedroom. Everything's fine. And obviously by his reaction, I could tell everything wasn't fine. So I challenged him. I said, prove me wrong. I said, take the TV out of your bedroom for 30 days. Watch what happens. I challenge you. And as you know, men respond to a challenge and women respond to a need. So he huffed and puffed, but he was like, all right. He was not happy though. And actually a couple weeks later, I ran into him at church and he came up to me with a pep in his step and a smile on his face. So I knew it was going to be a good conversation. And he said, Evan, oh my gosh, you were right. And he's like, man, as soon as we got the TV out, oh my gosh, our romance is skyrocketed. Things are so amazing. Why didn't I do this sooner? And I said, exactly. So I'm going to bring my beautiful bride back and she's got some things to share on the subject.
So our bedroom is our sanctuary and we make it our sanctuary. And it has to be a place where a woman can basically let her hair down and not be thinking about the laundry pile in the corner or the phone going off or the computer email binging at her, whatever. So Evan and I have made it a point to remove all screens and to keep our sanctuary tidy and clutter-free. Because every little pile that is sitting in your room is a distraction. And the point is to remove all distractions from your sanctuary. You never walk into a church. I don't think I've ever walked into a church and seen piles of paper on the floor and, TV screens sitting around on pews and stuff. You just don't do that. So we just make our room as neat and tidy as we can. And another thing is we have 2 wonderful children and there's evidence of our children all over our house. However, in our bedroom, there is no evidence of our children. Our bedroom is all about just Evan and I. We never, ever bring our phones into our sanctuary. That is just a huge thing. I know that a lot of people sleep with their phones and they use them for their alarms and stuff and checking their sleep rhythms and stuff, but for us, for what is working, we have removed all screens from our room, and it is just phenomenal that by removing those distractions, it changes everything. And I understand that can be a really big leap. So just start with taking the TVs and laptops out of your bedroom. And then if you want a night of great intimacy, just put your phone out in the hallway or something like that, so that if there's some kind of an emergency, you can hear it, but you can turn the volume down and don't have to be listening for it. Because the time that you and your spouse come together, it's a time of connection. And any distractions are going to take away from that connecting time. So you will just be amazed at how much richer all of your times of romance can truly be when you remove all things that are going to distract.
Now, having my bride here and giving kisses is a bit of a distraction. Speaking of distractions.
It's a good distraction.
Yes, that's a good distraction. So isn't she incredible? I must say, I'm so proud of my bride because, again, this is not natural for her. This is not something that she wants to do, but she realizes how important it is to help so many of the other listeners out there get a woman's perspective, because if you get too much Evan money, right, we need some contrast. So let's get to lie number 2. Are you ready for lie number 2? And that is, fighting is normal. And that's a lie. Yes, you can have a fight-free marriage. Write that down. Yes, you can have a fight-free marriage. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to agree on everything. Hear me, watch this, feel me on this. You're never going to agree on everything. But fighting isn't healthy, and fighting obviously isn't the answer. So, one of the most famous fights in the world, of course, is told by Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon.
I love this story.
And Neil shares that when he went on the moon, you hear the first step for man, and of course it's on the moon and it's scratchy and it's in the late 1960s technology. But there's also a story where you hear Neil say, good luck, Mr. Gorski. And it's all scratchy and all that. So you can barely hear it, but you can kind of eke out. And everybody's like, Neil, what's up with this Mr. Gorski thing? So he shared the story about how when he was a kid, his neighbors were like big time fighters, like screaming, yelling. And he's out playing in the yard and he hears the neighbors screaming at each other. And the wife is like, sex, you want sex? You can have sex when the neighbor kid walks on the moon. So Neil never forgot that. And so he's on the moon going, hey, Mr. Gorski, good luck, man. So you really can banish fighting forever. But you need to address the root of the issue. Not just the bad fruit on the tree. Because if you have a tree that's pulling bad fruit, you can take the bad fruit off or even chop the tree down. But if you leave the roots, guess what? It's going to start coming back again. We have pepper trees all over our property. And man, I can tell you, chop the thing down and these shoots come out and it's just like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? So you got to get rid of the root. Otherwise it keeps coming back again. And that's why, you may be having the same fight over and over and over again. And you may have noticed what's most interesting about fighting is that what you're fighting about really isn't what you're fighting about. There's a much bigger issue. Yeah. And these issues really stem from 2 places, just 2 places only. And the first is what I call SHR, because at our core, humans just want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be recognized. And if we don't feel seen, heard, or recognized, we act out. In so many different ways. We may get depressed or, we may get out of sorts and, we act out in all these different ways. And just look at social media. I mean, think about this, that heartfelt post that you made, and you don't get any responses or any likes or any comments. How do you feel, right? When you're not seen, heard, or recognized. I mean, seriously, you get bummed out, you get a little negative, you're just like, oh, nobody commented on, because you don't feel seen, heard, or recognized. Or you look at the number of views, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, at least so many people watched it, right? So again, that's the kind of the dual-edged sword of social media. You do this great post, but if, only 50 people watched it, or for some people, gosh, only 1 million people watched it, right? You get all this, again, it's relative, right, of what being seen or recognized is. So how does that work for fighting? Let's dial it back in here. So how many times have you been in an argument and they bring that up again? The classic, man, I thought we were over this. Why do they keep bringing up these past hurts? And the simple truth is because they don't feel seen, heard, or recognized. Because if they did, they wouldn't bring it up anymore. So I know what you're thinking. You're saying, no, look, I've already apologized for that. We both agreed to move on, but they can't emotionally move on if they don't feel seen, heard, and recognized. So what am I supposed to do? Trust me, it's simple. The major cause of not feeling truly seen, heard, or recognized is when you're given a non-restorative apology. Just because you give an apology doesn't mean it's been restorative. There is, if you don't do a restorative apology, it's the same as not apologizing at all. Now, some of you are like, well, how come no one ever taught me this? And just like me, you were probably raised in a normal dysfunctional family. And even if you were one of the lucky ones who had a functional, loving home, 99% of the population is never exposed to some of the most important tools about communication and restoration. But guess what? You are now, and the healing can begin. And my bride and I are going to show you how to do it step by step so you can restore your relationship and move into a fight-free marriage. And the best news is you don't need professional counseling. You can do this in the privacy of your own home, and it's easy and it's painless. And the benefits are incredible. Plus, the bedroom bliss benefits are huge as well, guys. Hello. So if this resonated with you, then stay tuned so we can give you more details on this restorative apologies. But before we do, let's dive into the second place that fights come from. And just a heads up now, we're going to go kind of really deep here. So just preparing you. This is in the deep end of the pool here. So I just want to make sure you're ready for that. But the good news is it's going to be so worth it, and we're going to come up with healing and discovery. So the second place fights come from is triggers and trauma. We all have triggers. And most married people that fight consistently know exactly what each other's buttons are to push to trigger their spouse. And once you're triggered, it's too late to calm down. When you're triggered, all the logic, compassion, and understanding gets overridden by your fight or flight response. Henceforth, why you're fighting. So you're either going to fight or you're going to leave the room, leave the house, and slam the door. Okay, fight or flight. And then after these big blowouts, you ask yourself, man, what happened? You got triggered into that fight or flight response. And later, when you calm down and you want to seek resolution, you ask yourself, man, what was I thinking? Well, you weren't. You got triggered. So everything in your brain shuts off and all you have is fight or flight. So the key is not to say, well, how do I get out of fight or flight? You're already in it. The key is to prevent the triggers before they happen in the first place by finding the root. Remember, we talked about before, finding the root of that trigger. And most triggers stem from unprocessed trauma. So many of you remember the Pixar hit movie Inside Out, where we got to look inside our brains and we saw how core memories are stored. And it was a fun movie. We've seen it a few times. And many experts agree that that is a very accurate depiction of how your brain works, except when it comes to trauma. You see, any kind of trauma sticks on the side of your brain and it festers and actually starts eating your brain away. It's like indigestion of the brain, except it never gets digested. Can you imagine eating a toxic meal and then it never getting digested? I mean, that would not feel too good. So unless this trauma is released, you see symptoms like PTSD, flashbacks, fits of anger, depression, or you get triggered for a fight or flight response. So trauma can be physical trauma, like a blow to the head or repeated blows, i.e. concussions from contact sports, pro football and, basketball or whatever, hitting your head on the deck. Other trauma can just be witnessing something once or repeated episodes, like being in the room when there's domestic violence going on when you're young. So the key here is the willingness to grow as a person and search for those areas where there might be trauma. And many discount their trauma and they say, oh, that wasn't that big of a deal. We all kind of went this, just kind of whatever. But it is. And the only way for your body to protect itself is to try to discount it and try to stuff it away. But it never goes away. You may not even like or agree with the word trauma. You're just like, nah, that wasn't trauma. So we'll just use the word trigger. You're triggered because of something you have not fully processed. So triggers and trauma come in all shapes and sizes, and it's different for everyone. What triggers and traumatize some people may not others. Because, get ready for this, it's not what happened. It's what you believe about what happened. Because you may have a brother or sister or a friend who experienced the exact same things you have, and they're not triggered or traumatized. And that's because they have a different belief about what happened. Triggers and trauma sound like this. It's my fault. If only I was stronger, this wouldn't have happened. If only I was smarter, this wouldn't have happened. If I was a better brother or sister, if I was a better husband or wife, if I would have got there sooner, if I could have, da, 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 da. It's always about this story you tell about, hey, if I was something different, it wouldn't have happened. And so that's a great way for you to realize like, oh, wow, yeah, I do kind of believe that about that. So once you identify the trigger or trauma or triggers or traumas, you can start to heal from it. But the main thing is first figure out what they are. And then you can start healing from this trauma by asking yourself, what do I believe about what happened? Mm-hmm. Because it's not the event or events that causes the trauma. It's what you believe about what happened. So in some of our Happily Ever After live events or our sister seminars that my bride and I put on and we work with other people on, we actually have at some of the events trauma experts to help people change their beliefs about what happened and clear their trauma once and for all. It's extremely powerful and liberating. And again, I know this is a deep subject and we're just scratching the surface, but you really can discover your triggers and begin the healing and move on to a fight-free marriage. So now let's move on to lie number 3, dun, 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 I think the biggest one of all, which is, if I marry the one, then everything will just work out naturally. If it's meant to be, it'll just work out.
Yeah, no.
And that's a lie. It's a lie. And it's such a powerful lie because it pulls on our human desire to not have to grow or change or do any work. It's like saying, you don't need to go to basketball practice to your son or daughter. If it's meant to be, for you to make it in the NBA, things will just work out. You need to go to practice. You don't need to shoot any hoops. Don't worry about it. You don't need to work on your golf game. If it's meant to be, you'll win the Masters tournament and be famous and rich and woohoo. And how ridiculous is that line of thinking? You would never be like, you don't have to practice. Like, you got to practice more. So why would your marriage relationship be any different? You have to be intentional to grow together because the simple truth is there is a drift. So many of times you may have friends or yourself where you're looking back on past relationship, maybe divorces or failures, or friends that you go, gosh, what happened to you and Mary? And you go, or they say, I don't know, we just drifted apart. Well, duh, there's a drift. Okay, so let me explain. So in this life, there is a drift that is pulling you and your spouse apart. So the question is, are you going to paddle intentionally and fight that drift, or are you just going to let it take it wherever it goes? So how many of you have experienced this? You're in a canoe, you're on a paddle board, you're even in a little inner tube on a lazy river, you're in some kind of floating device of some kind, and you're trying to paddle next to your friend or your spouse. And you turn around and whoosh, they're 5 feet in front of you. Or hey, where'd they go? What's going on? Whether you're in a river, whether you're in the ocean, whether you're even one of these lazy rivers, there's a current, there's a drift in everything. So you have to physically be intentional about paddling right back next to them to get even with them. And if they're not paddling, it's like, gosh, we got to kind of work together and get this going. So there is a drift. And so the real key is, hey, I need to be intentional and paddle to get to them. And many of us have been here where there's times where, gosh, the grass just looks greener on the other side. And the simple truth is the grass is greener where you water it. So when you're at the gym and there's, right next to you, there's that hottie on the treadmill or whatever, and you're trying to compare it to your bride who's at home trying to do the laundry and cook and clean, take care of the kids. Yeah, that grass looks greener, but that's because you haven't watered your grass. Okay. She doesn't have time to get to the gym because she's doing all this other stuff or whatever. Or, the classic in the corporate world, right? In the corporate world, everybody sees the best face of everybody. The women got their Spanx on, they got their heels on, their hair's perfect, right? And you're trying to compare that to, oh yeah, my honey in bed with her hair sideways and all this stuff. So you're constantly seeing this best of that other person rather than what reality is. So the grass is greener where you water it. And just hearing some of the stuff may remind you, gosh, Ev, it just seems like my wife and I, we've drifted miles apart and it's just going to take forever to get back together. And the simple truth is, it's not as far as it looks. My bride and I can help you fast forward that process. We can help you get reconnected again. So a lot of times people think, as far as the drift and all of that, a lot of people think, well, gosh, Ev, I always thought a marriage was like a tandem bicycle, where we're on separate bicycles, but then we join up on a tandem bicycle built for two, and then we're automatically connected. No, that's a lie. You're two separate people. Mm-hmm. You can't jump on the other person's bike or jump on the other person's boat. You have to paddle together consistently. There's no free ride, okay? So we're going to teach you how to fast forward that process. So no matter how far they look like they've drifted away, we can fast forward and bring you guys back to restoration. And again, fast forward the process. And rest assured, I haven't forgotten your free gift either. So how would you like it if my bride and I actually walk alongside you and help you fast forward this process of restoring and improving your marriage? If you're okay with that, I have something special to share with you. We have many more skills and tools to help you restore your marriage, increase your bedroom bliss, and do amazing things. And it's all in our incredible bundle package. So here's what you get. First of all, we have our brand new course, The Instant Marriage Makeover. And this course is designed to do just that. Instantly get your marriage right side up. And you're going to have unlimited access to this one-of-a-kind video course where we're going to cover why people drift apart and how to avoid that trap forever. We're going to talk about how to instantly be connected and stay connected. And we talk about fast forwarding. How about instantly? Then we're also going to talk about the tangible returns of forgiveness. You've all heard of ROI, return on investment. We're going to talk about ROF and the tangible returns on forgiveness. Best of all, 100% guarantee that you're going to have a brand new passion-infused marriage or your old marriage back. How about that? So this course normally retails for $197 on our website. And you also get, in this incredible bundle, you get my bride and I's live bi-weekly Q&As where we answer some of your toughest questions live. And the access to this is normally $600 per year, and we're also including that in the bundle. Now, best of all, dun, 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 my bride and I have decided to include for you in this incredible bundle our magnum opus, the Marriage Mastery Course. So now you can complete your training and go from your makeover to mastery. And in this course, my bride and I are going to teach you the number one killer of all marriages and how to banish it forever. We're going to teach you how, step by step, to give and receive that restorative apology. Woo, get ready for that one. And we're also going to share how to have the best sex of your life and have it more often. Now, this course normally retails on the website for $297, but this is also in the bundle. And last but not least, we're including in this incredible bundle 2 tickets to our next Happily Ever After live event that normally go for $500 each. And we're also going to give you access to any sister events that come up so you can take advantage of those. That's a total price, make sure I did the math right, of $2,094. But I'm not going to charge you that. So for those that take action today, you can get this incredible bundle for just $197. That's over $1,800 in your pocket. And we can even break up the payments. If all this course did was save you from a painful divorce, wouldn't it be worth it? Yes, it would. These courses are going to save you from massive pain. They will give you great pleasure and restore the flow of love again and bring tremendous freedom and healing. Take action now and get the instant marriage makeover, marriage mastery, access to the live Q&A, the live event tickets to this incredible bundle. And here's the guarantee again. We 100% guarantee a brand new passion-infused marriage, or you get your old marriage back. So as promised, my bride and I have a special gift for you. We have a unique audio called Happily Ever After and Then Some, and you're going to love it. And the link for that is below. Now, John Wooden used to say, we have a choice to make in everything we say or do. And in the end, my friends, the choice you make makes you. Choose to restore the flow of love. Choose to have a passion-filled marriage and live happily ever after. We look so forward to seeing you at our Happily Ever After live events and on the live Q&As. It's going to be amazing. We wish you all the very best. So for my bride and I, God bless you.